super fine, man. This verse is for you. You're a vision so sublime, man, but your broken mind can't see. This verse is for you. Just try one time, man, to see everything that I can see. And this verse is for you. Your blistered soul can't hear your own ancients chant. Why, this verse is for you. If I could lend you my love with the shame that I sung, this verse is for you. And the tears that we hide when they tear at your pride, tell why this verse is for you. With some tenderness, show how rich melanin flows with the magic that knows why this verse is for you. If you could feel in my arms a delight that warms, you'd know this verse is for you. My faith in you gels when your excellence tells, this verse is for you. While the king in you sleeps, your soul I will keep, and this verse is for you. And always, this verse will be for you. Let's do it. Good evening, greetings, and salutations. This is Passionate Bliss, and I'm here again tonight with questions, comments, useless facts about me. But first, go to my online store, mypassionatebliss.myshopify.com, and check out the latest edition of the Black Love t-shirt line collection that is featured there. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about communication. I've been gone for a few months, getting some much needed R&R, and I have returned, and I was walking through the YouTube streets, and I saw several attempts at communications, panels, one-on-one individuals, and I saw that each time it looks like consistently the conversation would break down and degrade into accusations, name-calling, generalizations, and there was never any type of real exchange, and there was never any type of real resolution, and there was never really any coming to agreement or even agreeing to disagree about anything. And so I felt like I focused first, before I jump back into the agenda of my t-shirt line and my channel of reconnecting Black men and women, I wanted us to talk about communication. Because when we talk, we don't want to talk at each other, I hope. We want to talk with each other. We want to exchange information. So my question for tonight is this. When you communicate, what is your purpose in communication? Do you have a purpose when you communicate? Okay. What is your communication style? Is it effective? And do you know when to stop communicating? Okay. And so I did find some interesting quotes on communication. And one that says, when people talk, listen completely. And I like that one because it says to listen completely. There's a difference between listening and hearing. And I did a separate video on that earlier. I'll see if I can find the link to put up there for you below. But to listen completely means not just to listen, because to listen indicates that you heard a sound and you listened because you heard somebody talking. That's listening. Hearing involves comprehension. That means you're trying to find out and understand what it is they want from you, what it is they're saying. And hopefully you have an appropriate response, okay? So there's listening and there's hearing. And the second quote goes into that as well. It says the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. Because if, in fact, you're listening for what the person is saying and you're hearing what they're saying and comprehending it, if there's a question that isn't answered, you're going to hear it. And that gives you the opportunity to ask the question. Because for everything that's said, there's something that isn't said. And you need to clarify for effective communication. So I did like those two quotes. And so I wanted to go into the first question I had. What is your intention when you communicate? And this requires a certain level of honesty, which is often lacking from communication, because we want to present the best image. We want to be politically correct. We want to, come off seeming like the good guy. And as a result, sometimes honesty gets lost. And very few people are able to have frank discussions anymore, because there's a certain level of honesty that people don't achieve anymore. But when you are not honest, when you communicate, then it becomes ineffective because the person can't process it and then respond appropriately because you haven't been honest when you've communicated. So you want to keep in mind, what is the purpose of my communication? What am I trying to convey? Am I trying to convey something? Because if you're communicating and you don't intend to understand and to be understood, then you're not communicating. You're delivering a speech. You're talking at someone. You're lecturing someone. You are on a platform, a soapbox. But that's not communication. The goal of communication should be to understand and to be understood. Because the fact of the matter is that you may not agree. They might not like what you have to communicate. And so in that case, the goal is just for them to understand you and where you're coming from and for you to understand them. And when you communicate, I would hope that that is your goal. Some people, when they communicate, their goal is to win. Their goal is to be right. Their goal is to have the last word. That is ineffective communication. Ineffective. Okay? And so you want to keep that in mind when you communicate. What is your intention? Have an intention when you communicate, especially on a subject like Black love, which is what my channel is about. Okay? What is your communication style? There are some people who, they speak in stories. I speak in stories. My mother speaks in stories. Okay? We're like in that way. But it usually makes a point. What is your communication style? There are some people who are persuasive speakers. There are some people who are argumentative when they speak. There are some people who are defensive when they speak. Ineffective communication patterns is what those are. Okay. You want to make sure that you are communicating in such a way that you're not blocking the person from hearing you. Because if you're argumentative and you're yelling, the person is not registering what you're saying. They're registering that you're yelling. And you're going to trigger either a fight or flight response. They're going to flight, get up and leave physically, or they're going to shut down mentally and emotionally, and they won't hear you at all. And you can talk till the cows come home. But you've triggered a fight or flight response. On the opposite end of the scale, you may get somebody who's going to stand up to you toe to toe and go with you back and forth and have an argument that accomplishes nothing and may make things worse, actually. That communication you would have been better off without. Okay? And do you know when to stop talking? Okay? When to stop communicating? My suggestion would be when the person is not hearing you, when they've left the topic, when they haven't addressed your concern, when you haven't conveyed an idea, when they can't receive it, when you can't receive it, if it deteriorates into an argument, it's time to leave the conversation. Okay? So that will require that you be honest, that you not be argumentative, that you not engage in things like name calling. That is a barrier to effective communication. And it's inappropriate. It's also abusive speech. Okay. Name calling, that you automatically make them defensive. They want to defend themselves against the name that you called them. Probably going to call you one too. Okay. So personal attacks, that's ineffective communication. I see that a lot. Generalizations are something that is often used in communications. Black women want this. Black men want that. Black men don't. White women don't. That is not an effective communication tool that you can use, because to say that most women want this, most men want that, most implies that you know them all, which you don't. You can't. Most and the majority, those terms imply that you know them all, okay, that you took a survey, you asked them this question addressing the point you're trying to make, and that at least 51% of them said, this is how I feel. Then you can say most men, most women, or you can speak in behalf of Black men and Black women, because you've met them all, you've interviewed them all, and you have 51% stating what you said. Okay, and since you cannot have that kind of information to share, then you can't use the words, the majority, most, and all of y'all are like this. Ineffective, inappropriate. It's not even true. It's you presenting an opinion as if it were fact, as if you know this and you can verify this, you can quantify this, which you can't. So I see people using a lot of generalizations when they comment. You can use terms like a large number, or many women I've met, or quite a few. We can use those terms. But saying most and speaking for men and women in general, it's not appropriate. And it's going to be triggering an argumentative response. And when you start to arguing, nothing is solved. There is no resolution. Okay. When the time to stop communicating is when you have made yourself clear, they understood you. When they've made themselves clear, you understood them. And if you just don't agree, you have to agree to disagree and move on. There's no point in communication. There's no point in repeating. Now, sometimes you do need to repeat in a conversation, especially if it's clear that they didn't actually understand what you were trying to say, because sometimes what people say is not what they're trying to say. And you may need to clarify with questions, and you may need to repeat or say it differently. But once it's clear that they understand you and you understand them, you just don't agree with each other, then it's time to end the communication. And then decide what you're going to do from that point on, given the fact that this is how they feel, this is their position, you know. And FYI, when somebody disagrees with you, that's not drama. They just don't agree with you. If somebody disagrees with you, that's not arguing. They just don't agree with you, okay? And that's okay. We don't have to agree. Everybody does not think like you, and they don't have to. Everybody does not have to agree with you. They don't have to. But you do have to keep dialogue open so that you can have the information you need to make an informed decision about whatever the topic is. And as far as Black love and reconciliation between the Black man and the Black woman, what I want is for us to examine why 72% of our children are in single parent homes, okay? Why Black women 16 and over who never married increased from 21% in 1950 to 41% in 1998, okay? Black children, 72% single parent homes. Black couples who do get married and then divorce, 48%. Black youth in the juvenile system in 1950 was 15%. In 1997 is 40%. And we can recognize the change that's trickled down to our youth in the lyrics. They're bitches, they're hoes, they're pimps, they're tricks. You know, and they actually start to answer to these names and call each other these names affectionately, you know, because that deterioration has taken place because Black women and men aren't together, okay? There was no role model to show the young man this is not how you talk to women. There was no role model for the young lady to see this is not how men are supposed to talk to you. And this is not how you're supposed to talk to them in return. And so I believe that we have forgotten how to talk to each other. We've forgotten effective communication. And I believe that we can change that, but we have to start a dialogue. We have to be honest. And we have to use effective communication tools. Okay? And our goal has to be to understand and to be understood. Our goal has to be reconciliation. Our goal has to be acknowledging what has happened between us, that we have been apart. Many Black women feel like Black men abandoned them. They weren't there, okay? Many Black men feel like they are targets when they walk out the door, and that the system is set up against them, you know, to incarcerate them, to make sure that they, you know, are less educated and earn less than women. And so you have to acknowledge what's clear, what's evident, you know, maybe even some apologies are in order, okay? And then resolution, then problem solving, then finding out how to reconnect, okay? Because that's the goal. The goal is to reconnect on my channel in my communication process. That's the goal. That's what we're shooting for, okay? So let me know what you think. Do you think that you are an effective communicator? Okay. Do you have a goal when you begin communicating? Okay. Even if that goal is just to share information about yourself, to act as a frame of reference for when that person deals with you, or talks to you. Even if it's just to provide information about yourself, about your background, who you are, your likes and dislikes. Okay. That may be the only goal, just to share, to get to know someone. And that's a good goal, you know. So do you have a goal when you communicate? What is your communication style? Can you change your communication style so that you're heard? Okay. and you know when to stop communicating, when it's ineffective, when it's degraded down to abusive speech. Okay, and so that's what I want us to think about. Let me know what you think about it below, and I will see you next time. Until then, y'all have sweet dreams. Make to find them all real.